Success in one's life can be defined in many ways. One thing is certain, success is not guaranteed. It comes from a hard yard of sweat, toil, and tears, and is often very painful to achieve. Everyone in this room, everyone who has spoken before me, and those that are going to speak after me, have expectations, but then some of us become aspirational. I would like to share my life journey with all of you, with some lessons that I learned, and I hope will benefit some of you. I joined the Armed Forces Medical College at the behest and expectation, I use the word again, of my father. For me, it was another path-breaking education step. When I joined Armed Forces Medical College, I wasn't a great student. I was actually the second last guy who just about made it into the college. It was what I hoped was a fun time of 4.5 years. And we went along our merry ways with my friends. That was the first time I'd left home. And it was a lot of discovery. And I graduated from being a young boy to a young man. Something happened in the Armed Forces Medical College when I was in my 4th year, which completely turned my life on its head. I was unwell. I was given a medicine. I reacted very, very adversely to it. I had a cardiac arrest. I was certified dead for 37 seconds, and testimony to that is this little piece of paper, the ECG paper, which is one of my most prized possessions, and that keeps me company, and it reminds me, particularly when I'm down and out, that things could have been a lot worse. Fast forward from that time, I graduated, came down to the Armed Forces, to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, pursuing a career in orthopaedics. I might add, orthopaedics was the last specialty that I wanted to do in my curriculum. I wanted to be a cardiac surgeon. And my first impression when I reached the hospital was an old hospital which was being broken down. This was called the Liverpool Royal Infirmary. And when I reached the gates of the hospital, there was this big stone slab with an inscription on it, which I memorized and sort of stuck to my mind. It said, "Bone is lined not with marrow, but with the deep, dark ink of ingratitude." Didn't understand much of it at that point in time, but today, as I've gone on almost 40 years into the business, I think that it rings a bell at some points of time in my career. When I started in a small town called Ormskirk and Southport, there are little towns in the northwest of England. I had come from Southern Hospital. I thought I knew it all. And I was chastened and I was reprimanded by a scrub nurse. My ego was hurt. I mean, my immediate impression was, how could a nurse teach me how to do my surgery? And my surgeon, my consultant, was watching from the side. He walked up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "The first lesson in life is learn from everybody." I'm going to make a statement which I'm going to repeat several times in this next 10 minutes. And that statement is that the young are intelligent, but they cannot be wise. And I'll tell you why I will say this in the context of the talk a little bit later. My consultant went along and did what he could in terms of trying to train me. And these were my premises. What was the roadmap for success? What drove excellence? And what really made the difference between me and the next surgeon? It was at that time that I happened to chance upon this very interesting graph. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And this was actually told to me by my consultant, and it was a very chastening experience for me, because what it says is the guy who knows the least believes he knows the most. So that was my second experience. And it was at that point in time that I decided that if I had to achieve something in life, I needed somebody to show me the roadmap, somebody to guide me along. I couldn't do this on my own. And who was that somebody? That somebody was a mentor. So, what does mentoring mean? I think mentoring is a very unique concept. Each one of us needs a mentor. Some accept it, some don't. It took me a while to understand that I needed somebody to guide me and show me the roadmap going forward and going ahead. So I like to believe that a mentor is one who knows a lot more than you but rarely shows it. But he nudges you when you start to go astray, and most importantly, he tells you the one thing that you do not want to hear or listen to, that you were wrong, you did it wrong, and you don't know the right way to do it. Thank God I had the good sense to accept that I needed somebody wiser than me, more intelligent than me, to show me the roadmap going forward. And these were the three gentlemen who actually influenced my career. The one on the extreme left is actually the father of joint replacement in the world. His name is Sir John Charnley. He was the first person who actually did a hip replacement in the world. The one on the extreme right is the person who was an iconic pioneer in the field of knee surgery, again under John Insel, with both of which I had the privilege and pleasure of working for about 6 months. But the man in the middle is a friend, philosopher, and guide, my biggest mentor, and his name is Graham Hayes. He is now 90 years old. And he was the one who made me what I am today. And he was the one person who taught me more than anyone else has taught me in my life. And I'll give you a little anecdotal example. I was a young registrar, and I was assisting him. We were doing a hip replacement. Those days, things were primitive, implants were limited in their choices, and he created every complication that could have been created on the table. We got out of it with a lot of sweat, a lot of heartaches. Here is a man who has put his reputation on the line in this day and age of instant gratification, psychophancy. Here is a man who was prepared to take the blame on his chin. That for me was the mentorship. That for me was the experience. That taught me fearlessness. That taught me that you could take on a person, be honest with him, as long as you believed what you were talking about. He was also the man who told me to go back to India the day I had just come back from an interview at one of the university hospitals, one of the most privileged hospitals in the region. I was one of 11 candidates, 8 of them were Brits. I was the Indian and there were 2 Egyptians. I got the job. I came back to celebrate with him, bought a bottle of wine, the cheapest wine I might add because I didn't have a lot of money at that time. And he said, we'll do the wine bit, but you're going back to India. I did not question him. I came back to India. So that was again the reason that I had had so much faith in this man that I knew whatever he was going to advise me would be in my interest. Coming back to India was again a baptism by fire. Interestingly enough, I changed 4 hospitals in 17 days, not because I didn't like them. I think they didn't like me and my ways. And I'm very grateful for that because, again, the same anecdotal issue of making adversity into your strength. I came back to Delhi and started to work again with 3 people who influenced my careers, Dr. Abbott, Dr. Sahgal, and one other person who was Dr. Dholakia, who was the god of orthopaedics from Mumbai. And these are the people who encouraged me. I mean, because I was a non-conformist. I did not like rules. I wanted to live life on my terms. And everything I did was completely the opposite of what was described in textbooks. To the point that when I came back from England, my son had a fracture. He was about 3 or 4 years old. He broke his thigh bone. Everybody wanted him to be going to the hospital. I insisted on treating him at home, strung him literally upside down, much to the annoyance of my family, my wife, my father, my mother. Fortunately and mercifully, the fracture healed and he did well. And he's now a very successful finance guy in the United States. So again, I had challenges because I was not allowed to be given instruments that would help me to do my knee replacement surgeries. And here is really what I created. And you've all heard of knee replacements. Today we have robots that do knee replacements. That is my first set of instruments that was made by a carpenter. And those little pieces of thing that you see right in the middle is actually teak wood. And I used to sterilize these, and I used to do biopsies on these to make sure that these instruments were good. Did 16 of them, and very happy to say one of those 16 still lives 31 years after the index surgery. So this was my commitment, my passion, and my belief that we could do it in spite of all the obstacles. Yet an example of being resilient. And honestly, the biggest learning I had, this was again a takedown from my days in England with my mentor Graham, the role of teamwork. And I cannot overemphasize anybody who has achieved anything, and I'm sure everybody of you is going to talk about this, is the role of the teamwork. You learn from everybody. I learned from my ward boys. I learned from my scrub nurses. And one of my little tribute that I want to pay today publicly to one of my nurses who taught me one little step that helped me take down a very difficult step of surgery. And I learned that from her. I keep repeating it every time I do that procedure. So teamwork and humility. I think if you're humble in your outlook, you're willing to learn, and you're willing to accept that others know more than you, you're going to do a good job trying to be successful, getting closer to it. But if you feel other people's pain, you're human. And I don't think that it can get any better than that. And also to say that the past is our future, and you need to realize the genesis of today in the context of where we were yesterday. Another extension of that quote is, if I see further than you, it is because I stand on the shoulder of giants who preceded me walking this earth. And I think these 2 points pretty much embraces and epitomizes this entire talk. Finally, gentlemen and ladies, this is my Bible. This is the book that I read every single night. It's a little 62-page book with bold prints like this, written by one of the gods of orthopedics, George Perkins. And if you can read here, it says, the young may be intelligent but cannot be wise. Wisdom is not inborn, it is only acquired by experience, and the experience is often painful. Very, very profound statement. Just last night, I happened to get this, one of my favorite sports persons. We have got a celebrity sports person over here. Before I end, let me redefine success for me. What do I call success? We were standing for the group photograph, and Preetam Sivaji was standing next to me, and she walks up to me. She says, do you remember that you operated me 16 years back or 14 years back? I'm fine. That for me is success. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.